Love it, man! What happens when you take the most unbearable collection of the biggest jobbers in wrestling history, lock them in a trap house together, allow them to say and do whatever they want, and just leave the cameras rolling for a reality TV show? Well, TNA seemingly had the exact same questions during 2020, and they did just that. This was Diarrhea House. Now, in the words of the Great Velvet Sky, I've got some things to get off my chest. Diarrhea House all took place during the crunching era. Fans were not allowed in the building, and it was becoming increasingly difficult to produce a wrestling show, especially one that didn't suck. So I have to commend TNA for actually trying to combat these issues by doing something different and new. I will also admit this show did have some fans. I'm not sure how, but the praise ends there, because this show sucked Solo Sikoa's ass. For several months, long reality TV segments would air on Impact Wrestling, and this is a true story. This was around the time I was trying to get back into TNA, and I was actually releasing a weekly review. I found Diarrhea House to be so unbearable it caused me to quit making the reviews and from watching TNA altogether for a while. Now, whilst hardcore Impact Wrestling fans love this, anyone else outside this universe just watched it and scratched their heads, because this may be one of the strangest wrestling angles of all time. The show was created by Rosemary, who was known for her creativity and drinking blood, and also Tommy Dreamer, who is known for hogging lots of camera time. The show started out in the summer of 2020. Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie were feuding over the love of Jon E Bravo, a random former referee who Impact decided to give insane amounts of TV time to, even though he wasn't funny. Rosemary wanted some alone time with Jon E Bravo, and she was unrealistically in the mood for him when he revealed himself to be a virgin. Taya Valkyrie crashed the party, which annoyed Rosemary, so what does she do? Well, yes, she teleports more wrestlers into the house. And this truly has to be one of the worst collection of wrestlers of all time. Meet our cast. Johnny Swinger, who hasn't been relevant for 2 decades. 2 obese wrestlers, AC Romero and Larry D. Eddie Edwards' wife, whose hair resembles piss. Crazy Steve. Smiley Kylie. Her gimmick was unbearable. She acted like a child who'd eaten too many Frosties. Sue Young was also drafted in, presumably to add some sex appeal. And the Dina cousins. As you can tell, most of these people were jobbers, but now they would have an entire show dedicated to them. The twist is that none of them were able to leave the house due to Rosemary's secret powers. And Tommy Dreamer is the host, because he owns the house thanks to investing money from ECW checks before they could bounce. The storylines running throughout Wrestle House would be the Dinas and the Fat Guys, and Rosemary and Taya feuding over a referee. Everybody is just completely insane and completely brain dead. When they learn that they will have to stay here for a while, they start arguing over the bedrooms as there isn't enough for everybody. But they ain't fighting it out like they should on a wrestling show. Instead, they're making bad jokes and playing rock, paper, scissors. There will also be matches in Wrestle House because this house has a wrestling ring in the garden. I guess they were only prevented from leaving the property's boundaries or something. Crazy Steve and AC Romero have the very first match to decide who is allowed to sleep in the ring. It's a terrible match filled with comedy spots which make wrestling look like the fakest thing you've ever seen. It really makes you question what you're watching. AC Romero wins the right to sleep in the ring. The sleeping situation is also a running joke. The Dinas argue for ages about who was snoring. It makes me want to smash my TV, it goes on for so long, and it makes me snore. Tommy Dreamer emerges from the bed and forces them to have a match to decide who was snoring. So that gives us our second match. Yay. The bigger Dina boy wins and they hug it out. But Cody doesn't have anywhere to sleep now. But then he finds a tour bus outside, so they can leave there. Oh, I'm so confused. Taya Valkyrie is very concerned about the levels of BO in the house, further making this group look stupid. Swinger thinks BO stands for Bob Orton. She ends up giving them all soap to help with their bad stench. Alicia Edwards and Sue Young get fed up with Johnny Swinger hitting on them, so they will have a handicap match. The whole match is bad comedy. It's all slow and silly looking. The girls beat him in a match with a slow motion double team. Kylie Ray somehow reveals that none of them are actually allowed to leave the house until Jon E Bravo gets it on with Rosemary. Bravo finds this all too much to take and somehow he leaves the building. I wish they could give the Hawks some damn consistency. Rosemary blames Kylie for Bravo leaving. Kylie Ray dressed as Jigglypuff faces Rosemary. It's the best of a bad bunch, but the standards aren't exactly high for match work. The referee Taya Valkyrie also hates Smiley Kylie. She tries to help Rosemary win, which doesn't even make sense when they're supposed to be feuding for Jon E Bravo's affection. Bravo cheers for Rosemary, which distracts her, and Kylie kicks her head off for the free. Johnny and Rosemary have a heart-to-heart, but Jon E Bravo can't decide who he fancies. Who cares? Rosemary reminds us that this crap will continue for as long as it takes. Words that make the Hawk feel sick. Taya Valkyrie continues being the main character on this show, and she continues being disgusted by the cast as they have diarrhea now. I'm not even joking.
Oh, he ate something real bad? He's been on the crapper like all day.
She also has the runs.
She forces the cast to watch some of her matches from the past, which is arguably more of a punishment than watching Wrestle House. Crazy Steve, who is supposed to be crazy, the clue's in the name, but he seems like the most normal person in there. Susie and one of the Dina boys go on a date where they discuss diarrhea some more, so it's not exactly a passionate date.
I have the runs.
It's like Vince McMahon wrote this. The two fat boys will have a match because they're arguing over who eats more. This sort of humour applies to only the lowest of the low. You might think watching these two fight could be a real spectacle. Yeah, a spectacle of shit. Miss Piss challenges... Susie challenges Miss Piss to a match now because she feels that she gave her bad dating advice. There's a lot of violence around this house. Can't people resolve issues without resorting to violence? To be honest, when you spend an entire date talking about diarrhea, you can't exactly expect it to go well. Susie wins with a schoolgirl and gets a round of applause which goes on forever. Taya thinks the match sucked though and wants everybody to come back inside to watch more of her matches. Kylie Rae rejects this offer because she is apparently exhausted from a long day of doing nothing. And that leads to, guess what? Of course, another crappy match next week. The following week, Diarrhea House opens up with 2 minutes of stuffed animals talking to each other. The fat guys argue once again over how bad the stench is. But this time it's not diarrhea. Larry D says it's his new perfume called Ring Rust. It turns Larry D into a ladies' man or something. We get a big mystery over someone stealing the Dina boys' beers. The fat guys are blamed for this, because they're fat. Rosemary asks out the ladies' man as a way to make Jon E Bravo jealous. Christ, she's really scraping the bottom of the barrel of her love interest. The match with Taya and Smiley Kylie is the same old horseshit, except this time referee Rosemary is helping Taya out. It still doesn't make sense. This horrendous match just goes on forever, and mercifully, Kylie wins it eventually. Next up, we get a Toga Party. They dance around like morons, they all get drunk and puke everywhere, making the Diarrhea House smell even worse. This is just completely unwatchable at this point, if it wasn't already. Swinger throws powder in Crazy Steve's eyes, which leads to literally the only funny moment of the entire show as he screams out, "I'm blind," and Tommy Dreamer reminds him he was already blind. This is in fact true, as Crazy Steve is technically blind. Dreamer wants them to fight in a blindfold match, which causes everybody to bounce around like little kids screaming match time. What a bunch of jobbers. The Hawk has watched some bad blindfold matches in the past, and this one takes the cake, but thankfully Crazy Steve wins quickly. Rosemary and Larry D will go on a date next. Everybody begs Jon E Bravo to stop the date from happening, but he's too much of a pussy. Rosemary complains that Larry D smells too badly. Finally, Bravo storms in and slaps Larry. This leads to another crappy match. What am I even watching here? Larry D wins quickly with a shut up or I'll smack you one. But at least this leads to Jon E Bravo finally admitting that he has feelings for Rosemary. Tyra is drunk and slurring, and she challenges Rosemary next week to a Jon E Bravo on a pole match. Meanwhile, Johnny Swinger is forced to dress up as a clown due to losing to Crazy Steve. They call him a failed Matt Bourne and swinging too dope. The Dinas and the Fat Boys fight for 10 minutes, but at least we do finally find out for sure that the fat guys took the Dinas' beers. Mystery over. Or is it? Susie kills or evaporates them or something as a punishment for fighting each other. Tommy Dreamer says he's scared and he's crapped his knickers and he runs from her.
I have the runs. I gotta go.
Can you imagine the stench in that house? They're completely destroying Tommy Dreamer's resale value of this property. All that's left is, I guess, the main event, everything that we've been building towards. Taya Valkyrie versus Rosemary and a Jon E Bravo on a pole match. I don't want to see it. All that matters is that Taya beats Rosemary, but Jon E Bravo ends the segment by proposing to Rosemary. Despite this being billed as a winner-take-all match, that is. Taya allows him to propose or something, and Rosemary agrees, and everybody is happy. She's so happy, in fact, that she finally allows everybody to return home. Everyone climbs into the ring, dances around, hold hands, and farts until they blow back to TNA land. Despite Wrestle House ending, the storyline still continued for some ungodly reason. And wow, just wow. At Rosemary and Jon E Bravo's wedding, yes, they did an actual wedding angle, complete with a wacky cast of characters and Father James Mitchell to conduct the ceremony. Hornswoggle hands over the rings, and they're pronounced man and wife, but the lights go out. A fake gunshot sound plays, and the lights come back on to reveal that Jon E Bravo has been shot dead. Dreamer dramatically asks who shot Jon E Bravo and screams no as the show goes off the air. We still ain't done though. Tommy Dreamer spends the next few weeks playing detective. Eventually the case goes to Wrestler's Court. They think it's Johnny Swinger and he's put on trial by Judge DeLorean Brown. Eventually Rosemary is called to the stand where she admits that she never loved Jon E Bravo, she only wanted him because he was a virgin and virgin's blood will make her powerful. Somehow Jon E Bravo comes back to life. He reveals he knew who shot him because although it was dark he could smell his attacker's awful stench. It was one of the fat guys, Larry D. Tommy Dreamer sprays him with the ring rust perfume which turns him back into the ladies' man. The ladies' man admits that he shot Jon E Bravo due to Bravo stealing Rosemary from him. Despite the reveal of Larry D as the mystery attacker, he never became the main eventer that TNA was looking for, and he was released from TNA a few months later. Internet fans loved Wrestle House so much that TNA brought it back for a special the following year. I'd normally say that the shine wore off, but it never had one in the first place. One of the biggest issues with this show is that you had to be deep up the arse of the wrestling bubble to understand the jokes. Everything on this show was so insider, even the Hawk didn't understand the jokes and references at times. These segments really only just appealed to the hardcorest of hardcore fans. None of the jokes or references were anything mainstream. It's like if the Hawk sat here and made jokes in entire videos about when Amazing Red became Sangriento. He was a masked wrestler with cheese strings stuck to his mask. It might make one or two of you chuckle, but the majority of people will have no idea what I'm even talking about. They will not be in on the joke. And ultimately, it all came across as pretty silly making fun of more successful shows and wrestlers from the past, whilst they were giving us this. Another issue is that by letting the wrestlers just be themselves on camera, it was exposing their true selves to audiences. And some of these people were just the biggest geeks of all time, and they all stank. The segments were too long, the jokes were too inside, and nobody got over. Well, possibly with the exception of Johnny Swinger, who came out of this with more credit and TV time after it finished. But nearly everybody who featured on Wrestle House would be gone shortly after. Not just from TNA, but also from any mainstream wrestling company. Everyone looked lame. It was the opposite of how reality TV usually works. There's usually people getting it on, doing crazy stuff, big names, references to things normal people would understand. But there was just none of that here. Despite the whole storyline of who shot Jon E Bravo actually kind of adding up in some sort of crazy way when you think about it, the whole idea to have Larry D as the attacker was dumb because there was nowhere to go with it from there. Wrestle House and Who Shot Jon E Bravo did fill up a good chunk of TV time which was badly needed with the Corona crunch. And I'll probably get attacked in the comments for this video, but it was probably one of the lamest wrestling angles I've ever seen, full of geeks nobody has ever heard of. Jon E Bravo doesn't even have a damn Wikipedia page, and he was the main character in this. And it didn't make sense. Rosemary wanted Jon E Bravo to herself, so she teleported 10 other people and locked them in a house with them. It's like the opposite of what you should be doing. Whatever, props for trying, but to say this was good would be lying. On the toilet they were all sighing, a house full of dirty nappies needed cleaning and drying. If the Hawk was locked in this house he'd be flying, because the stench from Diarrhea House would leave me dying.